66 million years ago, something dramatic changed the history of life on Earth. A massive asteroid, now known as the Chicxulub impact, struck the planet and triggered a chain reaction of environmental collapse. Fires spread across the continents, the sky darkened with dust, and ecosystems began to fall apart. In a relatively short period of time, around 75% of all species disappeared. Among them were the dinosaurs, creatures that had dominated Earth for over 100 million years. This is a version of history most people grew up with. Dinosaurs lived in a distant past. Humans come much later, and their two worlds never overlapped. It is simple, clear, and widely accepted. But once we look closer, this story becomes less complete than it first appears. The idea that dinosaurs completely disappeared is not entirely accurate. In fact, a group of them survived. Instead of vanishing, they adapted. Over millions of years, they changed form, becoming smaller, lighter, and more efficient. Eventually, they evolved into what we now call birds. At first, this sounds surprising, even counterintuitive, because when people imagine dinosaurs, they think of giant reptiles like, Tyrannosaurus rex, or a fast hunter like Velociraptor. It is difficult to connect these images with something as common as a pigeon or a sparrow. However, modern biology places birds directly within the dinosaur family tree. They are not just related to dinosaurs, they are considered a surviving lineage of them. This conclusion is not based on speculation, but on multiple lines of evidence. When scientists compare the skeletal structures of birds and certain dinosaurs, the similarities are striking. Both share hollow bones, which are strong yet lightweight. Both possess a wishbone, known as the furcula, which plays an important role in flight. Their lean structures and body posture also reveal a shared evolutionary design. Over time, these features were modified rather than replaced, allowing certain dinosaurs to gradually transition into early birds. One of the most important pieces of evidence for this transition is the fossil of Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx. This creature lived around 150 million years ago and displays a combination of traits that seem almost contradictory. It had feathers suggesting an ability to glide or fly, but it also had teeth, clawed wings, and a long bony tail. It doesn't fit neatly into a single category. Instead, it represents a transitional form, capturing a moment when evolution was actively reshaping one type of organism into another. Further discoveries have strengthened this understanding. In recent decades, scientists have uncovered numerous fossils of further dinosaurs, especially in the regions such as northeastern China. These fossils show that fossils were not unique to birds, but were already present in many dinosaur species. Some had simple, hair-like structures, while others had complex feathers similar to those used for flight today. This completely changes how we imagine dinosaurs. Rather than being purely scaly reptiles, many of them were likely covered in feathers, blurring the line between what we traditionally call dinosaurs and birds. In this sense, the idea that dinosaurs disappeared becomes less convincing. A more accurate statement would be that dinosaurs transformed and their legacy continues in the present. Despite this strong scientific framework, alternative interpretations still exist. Some people argue that dinosaurs didn't disappear millions of years ago, and many have even coexisted with humans. Those ideas often draw from ancient texts and cultural traditions. For example, certain passages in religious writings describe large, powerful creatures such as behemoths, leviathan, which some interpret as resembling dinosaurs. In addition, stories of dinosaurs appear across many cultures, from Europe to East Asia. These creatures are often described as large, reptilian, and sometimes capable of flying. The similarity of these descriptions raises an interesting question. Could these myths be based on real encounters, where some individuals also point to ancient carvings or artworks that appear to depict human alongside dinosaur-like figures, suggesting that these images might represent historical reality rather than imagination? However, when these claims are examined critically, they face significant challenges. The most important issue is their timeline. Non-avian dinosaurs became extinct around 66 million years ago, while modern humans have existed for about 300,000 years. This gap is enormous and leaves no overlap between the two. If humans and dinosaurs had lived at the same time, we could expect to find clear and consistent evidence, such as fossils from the same geological layers or well-documented archaeological records. Yet, no such evidence exists. Instead, fossils of dinosaurs and humans are always found in completely different time periods, separated by tens of millions of years. This strongly suggests that the idea of coexistence is not supported by scientific data. If these alternative theories lack evidence, why do they remain so appealing? One explanation lies in the way humans interpret incomplete information. In ancient times, people may have discovered large fossilized bones without understanding their origin. Without knowledge of evolution or extinction, they would naturally try to explain these discoveries in ways that made sense within their cultural context. This could lead to the creation of stories about giant creatures or dragons. Another factor is their human tendency to recognize patterns and assign meaning, even when the available information is limited. Different cultures, despite being geographically separated, share similar cognitive processes. This can, result in the independent creation of a similar myth, not because the same events occurred, but because human minds operate in comparable ways. Cultural transition always plays a role in shaping these ideas. Stories are, passed down from generation to generation, often becoming more elaborate over time. As they spread, they adapt to local beliefs and environments, but certain core elements remain. This helps explain why dragon-like creatures appear in so many different traditions, rather than serving as evidence of real encounters with dinosaurs. These stories may reflect a combination of fossil discoveries, imagination, and shared patterns of human thought. In this way, myths can be understood not as historical records, but as reasons into how humans make sense of the unknown. In light of this, the question of whether dinosaurs disappeared becomes more complex. The the larger non-avian dinosaurs that once determined their Earth are indeed gone, and the evidence for their extinction is strong. However, their evolutionary lineage didn't end. It continued in different form, adapting to new environments and surviving in ways that are less obvious but no less real. Birds, which are often seen as ordinary and similar, are in fact part of this ancient lineage. They represent a living connection to a world that existed tens of thousands of years ago. The next time you see a bird, it may be worth reconsidering what you are actually looking at. It is not just a modern animal, but a product of a long and complex evolutionary history. In a very real sense, it is both a part of their present and remnant of their distant past. Dinosaurs, as we've usually imagine them, may be gone, but their story has not ended. It has simply taken a form that is easier to overlook, yet still deeply connected to the world we live in today. So what do you think about our story? If you find our story interesting, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.